Doing awesome, doing awesome. Hey, listeners out there, thanks for joining us. Thanks for checking out this episode. So, Lisa, looking at your website and your bio and awesome stuff like that. So, I know you're a health coach, and I like so much of the stuff you're talking about. So, I'm going to let you tell our listeners about you before we get started.
Oh, all right, Daphne. Just a bit about my background. I have a corporate background, a degree in actuarial science. And I was just a math geek growing up. I loved math. I loved numbers. And actuarial science was the hot field to get into at the time if you wanted to make money, which absolutely I did. And so it was perfect since I love math. I tell you what, though, I fell asleep at my computer one too many times. No offense to the actuaries out there. It's a fantastic career. It just wasn't for me in the long run. So I transitioned to sales, which I fell in love with. I traveled, also fell in love with that. And it became evident to me that was the life I wanted to live. So I ended up moving overseas, lived in Dubai off and on for 10 years. And it was there that I really fell in love with Eastern philosophy and what we can learn from other cultures. That led me to become trained as a yoga instructor, which led me down this mindfulness meditation path, which led me down the health and wellness path. And here I am, a health coach.
Awesome. So when you think, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Roberta.
Okay. When you think of the Middle East, I know Dubai is a little different, but you don't think of really like empowering women type of thing, or Yeah. How is that? How are you exposed to Eastern philosophy in that environment?
Roberta, that's a really great question. And unfortunately, in Dubai, in the Middle East, in the Gulf region, particularly when you're living there as an expat, you don't get a ton of exposure to the locals. However, there are people from all over the world living in Dubai. It's very much a melting pot. And it's a lot closer to India and to Asia than we are. I'm from Iowa. I lived in Kansas City at the time. So as far as I was concerned, I was a hop, skip, and a jump away from India. And that's where I got to do some really cool studies. My teachers are based out of Australia. They used to come to Dubai. Just a lot of travel, a lot of really cool serendipity happening just because people are coming from all over the world.
Very cool.
Yeah, you said you were in actuary science. So you actually got the bachelor's in that?
I did, Daphne. Yeah, there are a few colleges in the US, not a ton, probably more now, but I went to the University of Iowa and I got my bachelor's degree in actuarial science.
I'm in life insurance.
Oh, yeah. That was my career.
Because as I honed in on that, I go, okay, you could actually go to school for that? I thought people just discovered and fell into it, but okay, you can actually train. Well, I guess so. You would train for it because they're pretty exact.
Yeah,
the good ones are.
Once upon a time, the whole mortgage business was run off actuarial data. Then it was, yes. Then they switched to what you could sell in the stock market, but that's a whole other ball of wax. But yeah, it used to be run off actuarial science.
So we're coming out of college, actuary science. So could you spend some time in corporate America?
Yes.
Was that being an actuary?
Yes. I actually, since you have an insurance understanding, Daphne, I went to work for a reinsurance company, a life reinsurer. And I was in the actuarial division for about 3.5 years. And like I said, it wasn't for me. So I switched over to the reinsurance sales department and I was there for nearly 10 years. So I was in the corporate world for about 15 years.
Reinsurance. Let our listeners know what that is.
Yeah, reinsurance is basically a financial transaction. So to give an example, as a very wealthy woman, you might need to take out a life insurance policy. And so you go down to your friendly agent who sells you, a $5 million life insurance policy. The insurance company that you buy that policy from probably can't afford to sustain too many $5 million losses should you get hit by a bus. So they keep maybe $100,000 of the risk, and they sell anything above $100,000 to a reinsurance company, who then might in turn sell another layer off to what's known as a retrocessionaire. So just financial ways that people are playing games with your life and the possibility of you getting hit by a bus.
Wow. So what made you hop out of that? So you're in Dubai, you're learning all this, you're learning yoga, you're learning mindfulness, meditation, you're close to India, etc. So what was the tipping point where you jumped out of corporate into?
Yeah, I actually jumped out of corporate to make the move to Dubai. I was married to my now ex-husband, and we wanted to have an expat experience. I think we had visions of sipping G&Ts in Hong Kong and living that life. And my ex-husband is a lawyer, and there was possibility for him with the firm that he was with. They did a lot of business in the Middle East. And our options were, I believe, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, perhaps Kuwait, and Dubai. And so we really hit the lottery. And Dubai was a fascinating place to live. Not that the other places aren't very interesting as well. And then, so I gave up my corporate job to move and be the classic expat wife.
Got it. Got it. And then you started your experience with yoga, mindfulness, etc.
I did. I met some really awesome yoga teachers in Dubai, and they were offering yoga teacher training in Sri Lanka. So I went, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do a month-long residential intensive in Sri Lanka. And that's where I got trained in yoga as well as mindfulness and meditation. The school of yoga that I studied with, it's an organization called Yoga Arts. They're very big in meditation and the practice of silence, actually silence as a practice. So that was really the beginning of my journey.
Okay, wow. Because we live in a culture here that is so not silent.
We do. It's getting louder and louder by the moment.
Oh my gosh, yes. So how do you think about the practice of yoga now in the United States? It used to be yoga was like the mysticky thing, Eastern, whatever. And then it became cool to practice yoga. And a lot of yoga studios you go to now are even competitive. Like yoga is not supposed to be competitive. So for the average person, business owner, female who's stressed out, wants to reconnect with their body, how is yoga fitting into that? And on top of it, can you give us a little advice on what type of studio, what type of practice they should be looking for?
Absolutely. Yoga is a wonderful way, a beautiful way for a busy professional to get reacquainted perhaps with their body. The very definition of yoga, it's a Sanskrit word that means the Sanskrit word is actually yuj, which means yoke or union. And so many of us have no unity between what's going on in our mind and our bodies. So yoga is a fantastic way to get reacquainted with what's happening in your body. And by knowing what's happening in your body, you can start to get a little bit more awareness and intimacy about what's actually happening in your mind. And so many busy professional women are completely stressed out, as you mentioned. So until we know what's going on between our ears, we really can't develop any type of new relationship with it to be able to manage our stress. As far as what type of practice, what type of studio, there's a different kind of yoga for everyone. There are as many different types of yoga as there are, gluten-free bags of chips in the supermarket. So I recommend anyone to just start, show up and try some teachers, try some studios. There's a lot of online studios these days. I actually teach my classes online. Keep exploring until you find a nice fit for yourself.
So you talk about on your site, and one of your things is that your client demographic appears to be the same as ours. Grown women of a certain age who are looking at making health and wellness their center. Important first and foremost, because we, as women, we often have to worry about, we don't set the right boundaries. So we come second. So our health, silence comes second, money, here on my end, starting a business, things like that. So did something happen in your life that you said, hey, this is something I need to pay attention to, or that I need to help others pay attention to it because I discovered something?
Absolutely, Daphne. When my now ex-husband and I, that's the key phrase here, and I came back from Dubai. And if any of your listeners have ever been expats or lived overseas. It's a lot of fun. It's a great opportunity. It's a great way to amass wealth. When you come home, it can be a really bumpy reentry. And that's what happened to me. We came home. We really didn't know where to turn. We lived overseas, traveled the world. Here we were back in Kansas City. Neither of us had jobs. I had been a housewife. I was just teaching a few yoga classes. And then boom, I got divorced. So now here I am, no career for 15 plus years, really no direction. I hit what I'm hoping is one, maybe my last rock bottom at that stage. We never know, but it sure feels like it now. And I developed a serious sugar addiction, a binge eating disorder. I was drinking too much. I was really lost. My health was not in great shape. My mind was definitely not in great shape. And I knew I didn't want to go back to the corporate world because of all the freedom that I had experienced. So I decided to look into incorporating my yoga and my meditation practice. And I went and became certified as a life and health coach so that I could put it all together to help other women like me, especially as I was aging. It was very scary. I was nearing 50 and I really didn't know what the heck I was going to do.
It's scary on both levels because I think I know a lot of our listeners and a lot of our guests have had something happen around that age, 40s to 50s, be it they got laid off from corporate, they had major health issues and had to leave. They got divorced in a job where they were taking care of kids in low level and then needed to support themselves. Like something major like that happened. And then on top of it, it seems like that's the age when our bodies really kick in and say, hey, not only am I here, but if you don't pay attention to me, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Hello, right. Sister. The size 12 pants are cute and all, but that's not really the problem. Like it's the sugar addiction. It's the so stressed out. It's the no boundaries. It's all those things. It just seems like that's the time for, I don't know, for men, because I'm not one, but for women, our bodies are just like, hello, I'm here.
Yeah, we can get away with almost everything when we're 30. We can eat and drink and have late nights and sleepless nights and all that and still wake up in the morning and go to our corporate job, go to work. But you're absolutely right, Roberta. When we get to a certain age, and I think for me and for a lot of women, as you described, it's a perfect storm, right? I think we're starting to clue into who we really are. And maybe we had inklings of that as a younger woman, but we don't always listen because we've been taught not to. We've been taught to take care of our men, our jobs, our kids.
Feel lucky.
Exactly. Yeah. We get to a certain age, especially if there is a major life event, like a divorce, like a loss of job. And then it's, whoa, just as you described. It is now, it's the tipping point. It's now or never.
Yeah. So what do you suggest, or how do you help a person start that's in that position? Like, where do they start? What do they do first?
They start where they are. Everyone's different. So we start exactly where they are. Some people, honestly, we start with how much water are you drinking? That's actually a great place to start, by the way. You might be surprised, you might not be surprised that most of us don't drink enough water. And it can sound really silly, but being hydrated has a lot to say about our health. So for some people, we start there. For other people who may already be drinking green juices and exercising 6-7 days a week and running or doing yoga or whatever, we make little tweaks to refine where they are. So it's really very personal and very different for everyone.
I'm letting all that soak in because I was there. Marine, right? Athletic in high school, made a living off your body. And then you get a new body at 40. With me, I got a new body at 45. She just showed up one day. I was like, wait a minute. You mean I can't just eat ice cream? As you said, stay up all night. I can't do that stuff anymore. What are you saying? And who are you? And I want the other one back. You don't get to have that. So here's the big one with the growing wealth part. When you're already a grown woman, we're 40 plus, we're getting in touch with this new person we are. So how did you go about monetizing? Okay, this is what I want to do. And then there's the world, because we got to eat, got to live somewhere. How did you go about figuring out the monetization part of that?
Ooh, that was a bumpy road. And it's one that I'm still on. I think, especially, and I'm sure a lot of women can relate, if you've been out of the corporate world for a really long time, it can be really rough getting back in, and things have changed. And people said to me, oh, don't worry, just get back into actuarial science. So, hello. When I was in actuarial science, we tried to say we use slide rules, because I don't even know what a slide rule is. Things change so quickly now. Technology changes, not to mention I wasn't the least bit interested in going back to the actuarial science world. Again, what do you want? Not how much, what somebody else thinks what you might want to do or you should do. I think it's just like I talked about with the health. We start where we are and we take baby steps. And that is exactly what I did. Literally, I first figured out what bank accounts there were. My husband handled all of it. Then I figured out how the hell I was going to get health insurance. That was scary, right? Then I started by making a rudimentary budget. How much money am I getting in? How much is my rent? It was such incremental shift for me in the very, very beginning. And it was scary as hell. But then I think it's like anything, it's just any accumulation. Once you get on the right track, you start to gain a little bit of momentum, things start to feel good, and then you get a little bit of confidence. And oh, by the way, you have to be very brave before you ever feel confident. Then you're like, okay, I can do this. I can call a financial planner. I can perhaps look into buying some investments or buying some property. It was truly just one teeny weeny little baby step at a time. And there are amazing resources, for example, like the service that you all offer with this podcast, right? There are so many great mentors out there, places we can look. I took a couple of entrepreneurial classes. I read a lot. I did an internship with a business mentor. Oh my God, I learned so much from writing Get Paid Shit, but I learned so much. You just really have to dig in.
Oh yeah, mentorship is big, because they can take points off your swing. They can improve how you do things, and just, I won't say they lessen the learning curve, but they help you move along it a bit faster.
Absolutely, and make it less scary. Right? Because I was so scared. I was so devastated and scared by all of a sudden being thrust into this single woman, middle age. Oh my God, what do I do? So to have some women mentors was life-changing for me.
Great. Coaching, as I said, they give you clarity, not because they give it to you as in a preachy, write this down, regurgitate the information. But the questions they ask you, because having the right question is going to dictate the answer that you give yourself, and a new view on what's going on. Did you find your money story altering and developing, and you figured out that you had one and you had to change it?
Oh yeah. I didn't know I had a money story because I was married and someone else was basically taking care of all that stuff. So I didn't need a money story. My money story was I got my nails done and I went shopping, and I really didn't need to look at prices. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that, but I'm sure a lot of women can relate to that. So when I was on my own, I had to learn my money story. And then I realized how I needed to relearn my money story, because it was pretty victim-y. It was not an empowered money story at all.
Yeah, I think it's part of that socialization to look for, even if we're independent, you went to college, you got a job, you did all those things, but we're still socialized to look for, or to be secondary in our own money stories, which is nothing wrong with marriage. I'm married, Daphne's married, but the whole, okay, once you get married, your story is secondary too, as opposed to, I've got to keep up with this and be engaged in my money story and what's happening to me and us. Like, I'm not trying to cut men or whatever, just saying we got to stay in it. But so how did mindfulness, I'm very curious. I've been working on my mindfulness because it's all over the place. How did practicing mindfulness help you with when you were scared, when you needed courage, when you needed to be brave? Did you incorporate your mindfulness practice in all?
Oh my gosh, I would say if I had to pick one thing, it was 100% my mindfulness practice, 100%, because there was just no other way I could get through. So some mornings, all I literally did was get up and sit. I piled up some blankets, meditation cushion, whatever. And I just sat there in silence and I felt what I felt. And fortunately, I had some training prior to this to know how to do that and to be able to do that. I relied on my teachers. But this knowledge, this intimate knowledge of what was going on between my ears was what allowed me to set the boundaries that I needed for myself to get through these tough times. So I'll give you an example. If anyone's ever been divorced, there can be all kinds of back and forth, really scary shit going on, emails and phone calls and lawyers. One of the first and seemingly simplest things that I learned how to do was shut the computer off at 5 p.m. and not get back on. Because otherwise what I was doing is I'd have my dinner, I'd pour myself some wine, I'd open up the computer, and bam, there would be an email from my soon-to-be ex-husband wanting the carpets or wanting me to pay him $40 for the silk placemats, whatever stupidness there was. Then I had to go to bed with all that swirling around in my head, and then I couldn't freaking sleep. So knowing what I knew, all right, if I take that stimulation, that negative stimulation away right before I go to bed, at least I'll get a good night's sleep and I'll be able to wake up in the morning fresh and a little more brave to take on the day. Mm-hmm. So simple things like that can make such a difference in how we operate.
Go down that road a little bit more with the stimulation, because you've actually helped me with that quite a bit on my sleeping. Mm-hmm. I have that lovely middle-aged wake up in the middle of the night. With the setting boundaries and removing stimulation at night, especially for entrepreneurs, you're thinking about your business, you're worried about sales leads, you're worried about paying payroll, you're worried about all these things. So how can they unplug and take that negative stimulation out to help sleep and to help quiet before the...
Yeah, it's one of the things that I struggled with most. And I find that my clients who are entrepreneurs and or business owners struggle with as well, is this idea that we have to do everything often. And that can lead to, I have to do everything and I have to do everything all day and all night, right up until the time I go to bed. But it's kind of a suitcase. If you're packing your suitcase to go on vacation, it doesn't matter how big the suitcase is, you're going to fill it. Just take a smaller suitcase, right? Once we learn to set some boundaries for ourselves around this, device use particularly is one of the biggest culprits. So several years ago, I stopped getting my email on my phone, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. So if you want me after 5, don't email me because I'm not going to get it. And trust, right? I think a lot of it for women, especially, is this idea that we've been taking care of everything. So we think we have to continue to take care of absolutely everything. And if we trust that things will be okay if we shut the computer off at 5 o'clock, for example, there's a lot of freedom in that. But I think I got a little bit distracted. But your question about stimulation, Roberta, so much of what causes us stress, what causes us distress, dis-ease, is an unbalanced nervous system. Most of us, I would say, are running around in fight or flight. So the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system specifically, which is our involuntary action, is made up of 2 main parts. There's the fight or flight, which most people are familiar with. If you're being chased by a tiger, your brain sends hormones to the body to prepare you to fight or to flee. The opposing side to that, which most people unfortunately don't know about, is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. The 2 both can't be on at the same time. Stimulation fuels our sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. So if we remove some of the stimulation, it helps calm that down. Our brain doesn't think we're being chased by a tiger, and it allows our rest and digest function to bump up And this is where we heal. This is where weight loss can take place. This helps us feel better, and it also affects our physiology. So stimulation in the form of noise, email, device use, stress, chronic, even low-grade stress keeps our nervous system out of whack, which keeps our hormones out of whack, which contributes to so many problems as well as sleepless nights.
Daphne, I see you thinking over there.
We're just taking all this in because the devices before bedtime, particularly the cell phone or now TV, just period, just devices. So it is to ease in there, because I'll notice even the next day about the sleep you had, about the sleep that I gained, because you on your website in one of your blog posts, you were talking about the importance of sleep. That's something everyone will talk about water, but not so much sleep, or even just the restfulness time that comes before sleep. Just
right.
Literally the wind down. Okay. The lights, whatever, what noises are going on. But that's a great thing about not checking email.
Yeah. I think, was it Warren Zevon? I'll sleep when I'm dead. So my answer to that is, that's fine. You'll be dead a lot sooner. Because, and people fight me on this all the time, experts, not just me, sleep experts, doctors, physicians, we need, as adults of this age group, 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, period. And that is uninterrupted sleep. Now, it doesn't mean if you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning once here or there, you need to get up to go to the bathroom, because again, we are women of a certain age. If you need to get up to go to the bathroom, but the key is, are you able to go back to sleep once you go back to bed, which is where this mindfulness business comes in. Because if you get back in bed after your 3 a.m. potty break and you start thinking, we've all been there, what happens?
You're up.
You are up. 2 hours. You're solving all your problems, and worse yet, your problems are so much worse in the middle of the night. Have you noticed? The tigers are really scary in the middle of the night. Yeah. No, the importance of sleep is sorely overlooked. Yeah.
Right. And the cell phone, because I've found a practice a few years ago that's helped greatly, is no cell phone the first 60 minutes upon waking.
That's a beautiful practice, Daphne. I love it.
I moved the cell phone out of the room. I didn't come up with this. I won't take all credit for it. Move the cell phone out of the room. So it's not even in the room, and I've seen it those nights, if I leave it on the nightstand, it's going to get reached for first thing in the morning. It's automatic. So, get it out of the room and just leave it alone. So whatever the rest of your morning is, that first 60 minutes, planning for business or whatever it is, just keep the cell phone out of it. How you fill up that 60, I'm going to leave up to you. But
leave the cell phone out, the news out, all the things that instant ignite.
You're inviting other stuff in. Put on some wind noise or some lo-fi or something, but you're inviting other folks in already, because that is your most productive time as soon as you wake up. That first couple of hours is when you can get the most focus and things like that going on.
It can be, yeah. And I would say that's a beautiful practice. And I would also suggest doing a similar practice at the end of the day. I call it a power down hour, which I also didn't come up with that. You may have heard of that. So at least 60 minutes before you're wanting to go to sleep is power down all devices, televisions, laptops, cell phones, especially. And we've been talking about stimulation. What's coming in, it affects us physiologically and it affects us psychologically. So if we use the example of our cell phone, a lot of folks are aware of the blue light issue now, right? It messes with our melatonin production, which is what helps regulate our sleep. So that's a physiological effect. The irony in that is so many people are then taking melatonin to sleep when if they would stop with the blue light, which suppresses the melatonin, it's like, it's like taking high blood pressure and low blood pressure at the same time, which by the way, I had a client who their doctor had them doing that. But And it is psychologically stimulating as well. So you mentioned, might have been Roberta mentioned the news. There's really nothing much good in the news today. So that's going to be psychologically stimulating. If we fall down the social media rabbit hole, that's a whole nother topic, right? To get us psychologically stimulated. All of these things amp up our nervous system, make it much harder to get a good night's sleep.
Is reading okay?
Is reading okay? 100%. I recommend reading. I recommend reading an old-fashioned book. The Kindles and the e-readers, a lot of them nowadays have blue light filters. So I think it's probably okay from a physiological standpoint, but why not just hold a good old-fashioned book? Yeah, I recommend reading before bed 100%.
I was listening to a sleep expert on a different podcast, and he said that humans are literally the only animal that fights sleep. That no other animal is like, hey, yo, I can't sleep tonight. That we're the only ones. What are you doing, people?
So back to that disconnect between our bodies and our minds.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Right? Like our body is telling us we need rest and we ignore it. We're like children, right? As a toddler, we'll fight sleep. Mm-hmm. We do the same thing. It's so funny.
And like a toddler, we're grumpy when we do.
Yes. It's that snowball effect, right? Like Lisa, you said you had a bit of a sugar addiction. When you haven't slept, it's scientifically proven, right? You're going for the carbs. Yeah. And then you're putting on a little weight. Then you're not sleeping as well because you put on a little weight. You're stressed out. You're not sleeping. You're going through all your problems in your head, stressing yourself out more. And then so you're eating a little bit more. And then so you're gaining a little more weight. And then it's that whole,
it's a vicious cycle. Yeah. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Now, how do you help, or what advice would you give to our listeners who are women of a certain age, in business for themselves, have other things going on? Where can they insert these boundaries, or how do you help them put these boundaries in place? If you got 2 teenagers in the house and a husband, it's highly likely there's 5 devices going on in your house at all times. So how do you recommend they start setting boundaries around that?
Again, we always start small. So if a power down hour is just, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. There's no 5 minutes. And Daphne suggested or mentioned getting the cell phone out of the room. So those are 2 great places to start. Another, again, it depends on where everybody's coming from. Putting the cell phone in your trunk when you're driving is a really great way to work to break the cell phone addiction and to be a safer driver, by the way. I'm sure many of the listeners, I deal with this a lot with clients, checking email on the way to work. This is crazy. Mm-hmm. I've certainly done it. I don't do it anymore. We just start making small little steps. It's all about small, incremental baby steps that, again, the momentum leads to bigger steps. And then what happens, as with most positive habit change, is you come back in a week and you say, how did that work out? And they say, oh my gosh, that was great. Okay, can you give me 5 more minutes? Can you give yourself 2 more minutes of silence in the morning? Daphne's talking about. And then come back next week. How do you feel? How did you sleep? How did your day go? Oh my gosh, I slept so much better. And therefore, my day was so much better. So the brain is wired to seek pleasure. We're always looking for what's going to make us feel better. So it's really a series of experiments. We try these things, we see what works. And as the coach, as the facilitator, I'm just there to make some suggestions. Hey, let's try this, see how it works.
I want to get into the nuts and bolts of your coaching. How did it, so right now, do you group coach? Are you primarily one-on-one?
At the moment, I'm primarily one-on-one. Yeah, I do have a yoga community membership. That's basically yoga and mindfulness and meditation, some self-inquiry. I occasionally run groups, but at the moment, I'm primarily one-on-one.
Okay, so your yoga community, is that primarily via Facebook? Is it Zoom meetings? What?
It's a virtual community, so it's online. I run classes via Zoom. Yeah, people log on from all over the world. It's great.
Okay, nice. Great. And the actual health coaching part is one-on-one.
Correct. Online one-on-one.
Well, of course it evolved because we're business people. So we find out what our people want and give it to them. But how did you start on that path where you said, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
I was continually I was a yoga teacher first, and I was often getting asked about other health related issues. Mm-hmm. And I knew that the mindfulness and the meditation and the physical movement with yoga went together. And I'm also a passionate foodie. I love food. I love cooking. I love gardens. I love vegetables. I love all of that. So I had this visual of a three-legged stool, that you really need each of the three legs for your stool to be stable. And health coaching was starting to become a thing. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, this is it. This is the container. This is the vehicle for me to be able to help my students and my clients in each of those three areas. And then, as you said, it evolved. And now I've got 4 pillars of wellness that I incorporate into my programs. And they're food, mood, rest, and movement.
Mm. Because I like what you said about mood on your website, control of your mind.
Yeah. Usually our mind just drags us all over the show and we don't even know it. That's what's happening when we wake up at 3 a.m. Our mind is running the show.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Roberta.
I just said absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And what happens is we train everything else, don't we? Talked about how I learned how to manage my money. Mm-hmm. We talked about, you were an athlete, about training our bodies in yoga, but we don't train our minds. Like, so many people never even think about that. I can't tell you how many countless workshops I sat through where they say, manage your stress and you'll be healthier, you'll feel better. But nobody gave me any tools how to do that. Mm-hmm. You know,
yeah, what does that mean?
We have to train our minds just like we would work our physical bodies out. It's mindfulness, meditation, all these practices are nothing more than a workout for our brains so that they're in good shape.
Okay. Could you give us one mind training tool?
I will. Yes, but then I'll have to kill you. No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely. So actually, can I give you maybe more than one? Because again, it's very individual depending on where you're coming from. For a lot of people, if I say, I want you to get up first thing in the morning, go sit in silence, close your eyes, and don't do anything for 10 minutes, your skin might already be crawling. So for that person, I would say, hey, have you ever heard of Headspace? It's an app. The first 10 are free. Or have you ever heard of Calm? There's a beautiful free resource called the Insight Timer. I think Roberta uses it. Yeah.
I totally use it.
Totally free app, guided meditations. It's a great place to start. If that's even too much for someone, which often it is, I prescribe what I call peace and quiet time. So that might be first thing in the morning, as you mentioned, Daphne. We'll talk about the individual surroundings. Do you have a front porch? Do you have a screened in back porch? Do you have a bird feeder? Can you just spend 2 to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, peace and quiet? No news, no radio, no cell phone. So that could be a really great place to start as well. If someone is interested in flexing this mental muscle even more, I love helping people get into a personal meditation practice, which would entail, in some cases, sitting silently with our eyes halfway closed or all the way closed and just observing the breath. That's a great place to start. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, up to 20 minutes.
The breathing meditations are good. I'm a little ADD, so it can be hard. I do love that app, Insight Timer. It's INSITE, I want to say, timer. That's really helped me before bed. And I know we said don't with the cell phone, but as opposed to not being able to go to sleep or going back to sleep, there's probably, oh my gosh, 10,000 free meditations on that app. They're just very quiet, very calming.
It's a great resource. It really is.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure you can download it off the phone if you want.
Yeah, I've never done that, but I wouldn't be surprised. There, for anyone who is interested, there is a lot of free content out there. You can find a lot of beautiful free guided meditations. I don't think it really matters so much what you do, so much as that you do it. And I encourage people to try something for a while. You mentioned your ADD, Roberta. What happens a lot of times is somebody will do one thing one day and go, oh, that didn't work. And then they do something else the next day. Oh, that didn't work. Well, what are we doing? We're just increasing the chaos in our brains. In a mindfulness world, that's called the monkey mind, where we're letting our mind jump all over like a monkey would. So just like we would try any protocol for a few days, we need to get a little bit of a controlled experiment to see how it's going to work. But breathing, you mentioned breathing, it's another beautiful practice that a lot of folks really resonate with. I found this to be the case, especially during COVID, when so much emphasis has been placed on the breath. And a lot of us have come to appreciate the ability to breathe clearly and deeply. So breathing practices, simply taking 3 deep breaths. That's sometimes what I suggest to my clients who are pretty busy in the mind. It's okay. Can you take 3 deep breaths? Most people can do that. Do it. See how you feel. We feel better immediately.
We're coming up on an hour, and this is a great conversation. I can hear about mindfulness all day because I'm on a journey myself. I'm working on breathing in the morning. In 3 count, out 3 count, hold for 6, and doing that for a bit. And you mentioned my favorite subject, the monkey mind. As an entrepreneur, I chase shiny objects all the
time. As do most of us, right?
Oh, that didn't work. Yeah, well, you only did it for 3 days. So this is something I've done the longest is our podcast. But that's because I have an accountability partner. So
it definitely helps for sure.
I know I got to meet Roberta with my stuff done, so that helps.
But aren't there as well a lot of yoga studios that have meditation practices that you can attend or you can do virtually, like with other people?
Some do for sure. And I was just on a call with a client yesterday who said since COVID, she really misses the community aspect. Mm-hmm. And again, some people like that. Some people don't, right? If you're a runner, some people love running in a running group. Some people prefer going out on their own. There is something really magical about meditating collectively, I think. And it is believed that we generate a certain energy or a certain vibration when we do meditate. And so if you imagine everybody together doing it, even virtually, vibrating all at the same level, it's thought that when we do anything as an individual, we raise the collective consciousness vibration. When we do anything in a group, it's magnifying the vibration, the collective consciousness. So yeah, a lot of yoga studios do. There are churches and chapels and synagogues that offer quiet time. Some may have guided prayer, guided meditation. I just always encourage people to seek out the resources in their area and again, find something that speaks to you and works for you. After some consistency, Daphne, not the jumping around, which what I love so much about what you said is as entrepreneurs, we have to be prepared to pivot on a dime.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And we need to turn around and focus the next minute. The problems arise when we can't do that. Right. We get so used to jumping all around. Oh, I got all these balls in the air. By the way, multitasking is a myth. It is not possible. We got all these balls in the air that we can't really sit and focus on the one thing that's in front of our face that's the most important.
Exactly.
And that is what a mindfulness practice teaches us how to do. We're on when we're on, and bam, we're done when we're done, and we can focus immediately, which is so beautiful. I have people worry, oh, but I won't be able to be creative and I won't be able to be on and get things done. Not at all. Meditation and mindfulness does not blunt that ability.
I think it enhances.
it enhances it completely. It totally enhances it.
Yeah.
So again, because I'm the timekeeper, this has been a great conversation because it keeps starting up. Where can our listeners find you, get in touch with you?
The best way is through my website at www.lisamurphylc.com. They can email me directly through there. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Speaking of monkey mind.
Okay, got the website, and all that's going to be in the show notes, listeners. So take a look at them. Is there anything particular you have coming up? Any like programs you're going to be doing or meetups or anything of that nature?
My signature program right now, I'm calling RAV, RAV, and it stands for Relevant, Active, and Vibrant, which are the three things my clients were telling me over and over that they want to be as they age. And that's my signature program at the moment. It's a one-on-one program, so I can start anyone at any time. Also, if anyone's interested in my yoga community, it is an ongoing community as well. So you can hop into any of my programs at any time.
Oh, that's great. That's a great thing.
Check out that yoga community.
Oh, yeah. I use an app. I do some yoga. I use an app. So it's just me sweating away
in the living room. At some point, what are you going to do? I love going to the space and being in the collection of people, but first of all, during COVID, we couldn't. And then second, sometimes it's just time preventative, right? Like I know Daphne still wakes up on military time. I don't think yoga studios are open when she's ready to do it. It's there and it helps.
I just hit the easy button. And if that allows you to do your yoga, do it, right?
Oh, yeah. Because it's great. Because it's helped a couple of ailments that are no longer around because I started stretching. It helped quite a bit.
Yeah.
Some things they said you couldn't fix, and I fixed it. I showed you. No pills involved.
Old lady back.
Yeah. Well, okay, Lisa, it's been great having you here. So it's been great having you here, and we're going to invite you back. And I have some other podcasting friends who would love to have you on their show.
I love that, Daphne. Yeah, this has been a blast. I can't believe how fast the time has gone. It's been great chatting with you both. And yeah, I'd love to meet your friends.
Okay, great. So I'm going to say bye-bye. Bye, Roberta. Bye-bye, listeners. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye, Lisa.